be doing my October wrap-up video. And so I got through a good amount of books in October. A lot of them pretty spooky reads, kind of scary ghost story type reads, which I love reading in the fall. So yeah, I'm just going to get right into the books. So the first one I'm going to show you is Mary the Summoning by Hilary Monahan. And this is a retelling of the Bloody Mary story. So it follows these 4 girls, Jess, Anna, Kitty, and Shauna. And Shauna is the main character whose point of view we're reading this from. But her best friend is Jess, and Jess pretty much convinces her friends to do a summoning to try to see the ghost of Bloody Mary. And so they do it. They end up actually summoning Mary's ghost, and things get kind of weird and creepy, and Mary ends up going away, and they do the summoning a second time, and from there, that's when things really start to get crazy. After the second summoning, that's when things take a turn for the worse. And so this was really interesting. I haven't read too many YA horror books, but I really enjoyed this one, especially I haven't read too many YA ghost horror books. And so this one I really enjoyed. It definitely was horror, definitely there's gore, definitely there's, tragedy, there's action, but this one, it really hooks you in right from the beginning, and I did not want to put this down, and every time I put it down, I could not wait to pick it back up and just see what happens. Jess's character, I really hated her. I could not stand Jess's character. And if there was one character I would have been okay with dying, it would have been her, because she, everything that happened was all her fault, and she did all these horrible things, and I'm just like, really? How is anyone friends with her? How are the other girls friends with her? I could not stand her. So, yeah. This, I gave a 5 out of 5 stars, I believe. I really enjoyed this one. So, it does keep you captivated and interested and wanting to read to the end to find out what happens with the girls and with Mary. The one thing I'll say about this one is I did want to see more of Mary's backstory and find out how she became a ghost and why she is pretty much trying to kill people. And we didn't get too much of her story in this one. We did in the second book, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, so I'm glad about that, but I was wanting to see more of her story in this one, which we didn't get, but we got it in the second one. So of course, the next book I'm going to talk about is Mary Unleashed by Hilary Monahan. This is the sequel and final book in the Mary duology. And this one I gave, I think, 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one as well. Like I said, we get to see a lot more of Mary's story in this one. We find out how she died and became a ghost, and the things that led up to those events. And we also get to see more of Jess's story in this one, especially why she was so obsessed with summoning Mary to begin with. And I'm not saying that it excuses her behavior or whatever. I still think she's a horrible character. But it was interesting seeing her connection and why she was so obsessed with Mary. I think I gave this a 4.5 because I did have just like kind of a question as to why Mary haunts the people that she haunts. And I can't really get into that too much or explain what I mean about that too much without getting into some spoilers. There's kind of a spoiler for, the people who she haunts. But I had questions about that I'm just like, this doesn't completely make all that much sense. So, yeah. But overall, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a good conclusion, good ending to the duology. But be warned, this duology is pretty gruesome. There's a lot of bloody, violent scenes because it is a ghost that's trying to kill people. So there are some bloody, violent scenes. So be warned about that. So the next book I'm going to talk about is Uncle Montague's Tales of Terror by Priestley. And this is a middle grade horror book. It's a collection of 12 short stories. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. My favorite stories in here were The Guilt Frame, A Ghost Story, and Uncle Montague's story. So there were a couple in here that I really, really enjoyed a lot. And then there were some that were kind of boring to me. So like The Path and Offerings. I didn't really like those as much. But this was interesting and entertaining enough. Some of the stories are pretty predictable, but I think that's to be expected with middle grade books. I tend to think younger middle grade and even some young adult books are pretty predictable. So just be aware that there is some predictability in here. But otherwise, it was pretty interesting and entertaining enough. So 4 out of 5 stars. So the next book I'm going to talk about, we're going to be taking a quick break from the horror books and fiction in general, because the next book I'm going to show you is actually a non-fiction book, and that is Famous in Heaven and at Home by Michelle Myers. And this is a Christian nonfiction book, and it's pretty much a study of the Proverbs 31 woman, a character study of the traits of the Proverbs 31 woman. And Michelle Myers is actually the founder of She Works His Way, which is a group for Christian women in business. And so I have been in that group for a while, online and on Facebook, and I get my business tracker from her, and so this was one of the free gifts that came with getting the business tracker. And so, yeah, I read, started this a while ago, but I finished it in October. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It's a really good study on the Proverbs 31 women, and at the end of each chapter, there's exercises for you to fill out and go through. And so I like that. I really enjoyed that. The only reason I really gave it a 4 stars was because this really should have been edited better before being put together, because there is quite a bit of spelling and grammar errors in this book. So I just kind of wish they would have edited a bit more before putting it together. But otherwise, this content-wise, this was a really good book. So, yeah. So the next book that I'm going to show you guys is Doll Bones by Holly Black. This is another middle grade or kind of children's, more middle grade. Another middle grade book, And this one is about three kids, Zach, Poppy, and Alice. And they are used to playing these games with their toys and stuff, and these, like, they make up these stories and adventures with their toys. And one day, Zach comes home and his dad has thrown out all his toys and stuff that he uses to play the games with his friends with. And he gets really upset, but instead of just, being honest with Poppy and Alice and just telling them what happened in the beginning, he just kind of makes this excuse that he's too old to be playing these games anymore, and it's childish, and he's grown up and stuff like that. And Poppy, of course, is really upset by this, and she really is, she's really into the games and the stories that they do and the adventures, and so she's like, one more adventure, let's just go on one more adventure, and then, you can be done. And so he agrees. So one night they sneak out of the house to go to this other town on this one last epic quest adventure. And of course Poppy has this doll with her, and which is why it's called Doll Bones. But the doll that she has with her is part of the adventure. It's the main reason for this quest that they're going on. I forget what exactly they were trying to do, but I forget exactly. It has something to do with the doll and getting her to this certain place. I can't remember exactly. But I thought this was a pretty cute kid story. Although it can be, some parts can be a little bit creepy for kids, only because the doll is kind of alive, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of Chucky, with dolls being alive, except she's nowhere near like Chucky. She is not a psychopathic killer, which is good. She's actually really nice. The doll is actually really nice. So, yeah. But, like I said, thought it was a cute little kid story. It really picks up once the kids leave home and are making their way on the quest. That's when the story really starts to pick up and get interesting. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. This is a pretty short, quick read. It's under 300 pages, so not too bad. And like I said, it's middle grade, so it's easy to get through. I did like the message of the story, though, because there was a lot about like grief and the loss of childhood and innocence, and so you really get to see that in the stories. So that was interesting to see just kind of how the characters dealt with, growing up and the loss of their childhood, and grieving over the loss of that. So the next book I'm going to show you is The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. This is a middle grade story, and this is about a kid named Prosper Redding, and his family long time ago made a deal with a demon for all the fortune and wealth that his family has. It comes from pretty much a deal that they made with the demon, and so now Prosper has a demon living inside of him, and he has to try to figure out how to get it out. So, yeah. This was really interesting. This actually really, this one actually really drew me in right from the beginning. And I actually also, I read this but also listened to the audio book while I was reading this. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed the audiobook as well. So if you do listen to audiobooks, check this one out on Audible because I really liked the narration of the audiobook. I will say that the plot is a little bit predictable. Like, I knew what Prosper was ultimately going to end up doing at the end. But there was one aspect that was kind of a twist, and that's with another character, Prosper's uncle. And so there was kind of a twist with his character that I did not see coming, and so that was pretty interesting. I will also say that I did not, when I first read this book, I did not realize that it was the first in a series. So I thought this was a standalone at first. So when I got to the ending, I was like, at first I was kind of disappointed because I was like, this can't be it, right? Like, there's got to be more, right? I need to know what's gonna happen now that, you know, the thing I thought was gonna happen did happen. So now I want to know, how is it gonna turn out? And so at first I was like, are they really ending it here? Is this it? And then I get online and I realize it's the first in the series. So I was like, okay, that's much better. Because I was like, I really did not want it to end like that. So I'm glad that there's going to be another book. I don't know how many books are going to be in this series. I don't know if it's a duology, trilogy, whatever. But I'm interested to see where the story is going to go from here. So, yeah. And I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. So the next book that I'm going to talk about is Nightfall by Jake Halpern and Peter Kujawinski. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to say that. But yeah, Nightfall. So this I read at the beginning of October. And then as I was reading it, I was like, man, I should have saved this for one of the readathons. I can't remember if it was the Spookathon readathon or if it was another readathon. But there was one readathon where the challenge was to read a book with something that scares you. I think that was for the Spookathon. But read a book with something that scares you or did scare you. And so I, as a kid growing up, I used to be afraid of the dark. And I hated the dark. And so this book, Nightfall, takes place obviously at night. So this is about a group of kids who live on an island where there's 14 years of day, and then after that comes 14 years of night. But when night comes, everyone on the island is supposed to leave and go somewhere else because you don't want to be left on the island during the night because creepy, bad stuff happens. And so these 3 kids end up getting left behind at night. And so, you know, a lot of creepiness starts to happen, and they are just trying to find a way to survive and escape the island. And so, yeah, this one definitely creeped me out a bit. Like I said, especially because I used to be afraid of the dark, and some of the creatures in this book that come out at night, I'm like, this is exactly why I used to be afraid of the dark. And so this one did give me a bit of creepy vibes. I will say it's kind of predictable, but that doesn't detract from the creepiness that it gives you. So there were parts where it's still genuinely still pretty creepy, but a lot of it is also still predictable. I will say I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the ending, because I thought, this was supposed to be more of a horror book, so I thought there would be more tragedy, and I didn't expect, I guess I kind of expected a bit more of a tragic ending, and we didn't really get that, so I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the ending, because on the one hand, like, I'm glad it wasn't more tragic, but on the other hand, I'm like, it's supposed to be a horror story, isn't it? So shouldn't it have been more tragic than this? So, yeah, not entirely sure how I felt about the ending. I gave this a 3.5 stars. I will say some of the characters, their actions were pretty dang annoying, and I wanted to smack them some of the times. Because seriously, some parts of this was like, are you freaking kidding me? Have you guys never seen a horror movie? You don't split up. That's like the worst thing you can do in a situation like this. Why would you ever split up? Like, I seriously wanted to smack them a couple times. So I was like, if y'all die, that's on you, because that's just stupidness right there. But overall, I mean, not the best out there, but it was still pretty entertaining, so gave it 3.5 stars. So the next book that I'm going to show you is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. And this is a really short story. It's under 50 pages and with pictures. So it's like a short children's story. And this is about a guy named Ichabod Crane, who's a school teacher, and he falls in love with this girl named Katrina, but ends up in this kind of love triangle or love feud with him, Katrina, and Brahms, which is the other guy who's vying for Katrina's attention. So that was pretty much the biggest part of the story. Things really don't get interesting until one night on his way home, Crane runs into the Headless Horseman, and so that is when things really start to pick up and get interesting. Unfortunately, that part is pretty short-lived. I don't know what I was expecting really with this book, because I've never read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow before, but I think I was expecting it to be more about the Headless Horseman, and it was really just about this love triangle / feud with Crane, Katrina, and Brahms, which wasn't interesting at all. Yeah, I wanted more with the Horseman, the Headless Horseman. I will say I'm kind of conflicted about my feelings about the ending, because it kind of ends in a mysterious way, like it leaves off in a very mysterious way as to what exactly happened. And so I'm kind of like, on the one hand, I kind of like it. I kind of like the mystery. But on the other hand, I don't, because I'm like, I don't really get closure with this character. I don't really get to know what exactly becomes of him. And like, we get theories and speculations from the other characters in the town as to what happened, but nothing concrete or confirmed. So I'm kind of like, I kind of want more closure than this. And honestly, what I thought Ichabod was gonna end up becoming a ghost and haunting the town along with the Headless Horseman and all the other ghosts in town. So that's kind of what I was waiting to see. But I don't know, kind of a mysterious ending, so a little bit disappointed. I gave this a 3.5 stars. So yeah. So the last book that I'm going to show you guys is Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 6th book in the Throne of Glass series. I really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This one, I heard that it was from Kale's. It was going to be about Kale's journey to Antarctica and trying to meet with these healers after what happened to him. And so I wasn't entirely interested in this story coming into it in the beginning. I knew we weren't gonna get to see Aelin and Dorian and the rest of the characters that I really love, and so I was like, not super interested in reading this one. But I ended up really loving this one a lot more than I thought I would. And this one is very necessary to read in the series because there's a lot that happens in this one, a lot that goes down, and a lot of information that we find out that is going to be pertinent to the final book in the series. So if you're kind of hesitant about reading this one and you haven't read it yet, definitely read it, especially before reading Kingdom of Ash, because there's some stuff that goes down in this one that you'll need to know about before reading Kingdom of Ash. I will say there's a lot when I was reading this one. I realized there's a lot that I've forgotten from the other books, because I read the other books at like the beginning of last year. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much I'm forgetting right now. So I really need to get on Recaptains or something and just find out, read the summary of all the other books, the spoilery summary of all the other books, so I can refresh my memory, because I do plan on reading Kingdom of Ash in November, so I'm hoping to kind of remember some more before going into that one. We'll see. But I really love the new characters that we get introduced to. In this one, I loved Irene. And Irene, she is really different from some of our other main characters like Aelin and Nesrin. She's not a fighter, she's not a warrior, but she's still tough, she's still a badass, and I loved her. And she's a healer in this book, so she's very compassionate even towards, those that she has a reason not to like. She's still like compassionate and helping others out. And so I really liked seeing her character. Of course, I loved her and Kale together. I loved all their interactions. And Sarah J. Maas is known for doing the hate to love trope, which, if you don't know, that's when a character, or one or both characters, hate each other in the beginning or strongly dislike each other, but over the course of time get to bond and fall in love with each other. And so she does that quite a bit with her characters in these stories. So it is something she does a lot, but I tend to like that trope, so I don't mind it. I will say there were So the scenes with Nezran and I think it's Surtek, his name. Those were kind of interesting, but I found myself wanting to always go back to Irene and Kale. So while Nezran and Surtek did have, especially towards the end, their scenes towards the end were more interesting because we learned more. We learned more about this war that's going to be happening, and we learned a lot more about Maeve as well. And so their scenes were interesting, but like I said, I kept wanting to go back to Kale and Irene. I will say I really did like the way Sarah handled Kale's disability in this book. I like the fact that, and this is kind of a spoiler if you haven't read this book yet, so if you don't want to be spoiled, just mute this for the next minute or so, because this is a little bit spoilery. But I really like the fact that Kale didn't end up getting healed completely. So I like the fact that, it wasn't just like, he had this injury that left him in a wheelchair, and then all of a sudden he got to meet these healers and was able to be back to walking and everything's fine and normal again. And so I like that they didn't do that, because they kind of did that with Felicity and Arrow. If you guys watch Arrow, I was kind of annoyed that they did that with her character. So it's like, really? You can't have one disabled character in your show? Come on. So I like the fact that, he didn't heal completely, but at the same time, he learned to accept himself and accept his new limitations the way that he is. And there's a line that he says, let me see, I wrote it down because I really liked what he said. So there's a line that he says towards the end where he says something like, the chair is in a prison, and whether he's standing or sitting, it doesn't make him any less of a man. And so I really like that. I really like the fact that he was coming to terms with this new reality. And I like the way that was handled. So another thing I'll say about this book is that there is kind of a twist at the end that we find out about Maeve that I really didn't see coming, but I really liked. And yeah, I am super interested to see what's going to happen in Kingdom of Ash. That's it for this wrap up today, you guys. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, what your thoughts on them were, and let me know what you guys read in October. And I will see you guys soon with another video. Bye!